I'm Antonis. I'm a software engineer at a company called Platform S8. We provide hosting for your web application. So if you want to have less people managing infrastructure, more people building products, feel free to check it out. We also have a company called Logic where we provide software and consulting services. I'm a Docker captain. I have a podcast. If you speak Greek, feel free to go to greekveda.fm and check it out. And if you'd like to see rants or other things, feel free to find me on Twitter. Um, on the coding side, I mostly work with Python and Go, but this is not very relevant to what we're going to talk about today. So let's get this moving. Awesome. So first of all, we're going to talk about the Babel Tower problem. So the problem is that we have many teams, and as a company grows, those teams have even more difficulty communicating with each other. And as you remember, in the Babel Tower, people were trying to build something great, and they could not communicate, and this made a lot of problems in the structure and other things. And from what I remember, this did not go very well. So a few of the problems that you have already seen potentially in your teams is that a few times product managers are not technical enough, so they cannot understand how the technology works, how the system works, and this proposes even more problems on the surface. Or there are engineers saying that, you know, I'm fine, I'm going to go into my dungeon, give me some code and something else, and I'm going to just code. I do not want to care about the customer. Who's the customer? I just drink coffee and output code. So you see that people are disconnected and people are not willing to cooperate sometimes, and this makes issues even worse. And then we identify the problem. We say, oh shit, we have a lot of people trying to communicate with each other and they're not doing it. So there's a magic idea saying we're going to put even more tooling inside. So you have even more tools to manage, you have even more processes to manage, and then instead of making people happy and making people work, you end up making people miserable into moving tickets in Jira between different states, and then you make those states even more complex, and I mean, you know the rest, you might face it every day. So what I want to call here is the blame circle. So it doesn't really matter where this starts, but usually ends up in one of those different steps. So let's start from the top left. You have a product manager that's creating a new ticket. And that ticket is like 2,000 words. It has all different cases. It has scenarios. It has many details that are not necessarily needed. So this, when you see it, you're afraid. You say, okay, shit, what am I going to do now? I need like 2 hours just to read the ticket. I need 3 days to understand it, and hopefully less than a week to implement it. So this proposes a big, a big time that the developer needs to spend there to understand it. And after like 5 days, where you have finally understood what the ticket wants to say, you cannot go back and say, okay, we need to change something because they're going to tell you, you had the ticket 5 days ago. Why are you coming to me that now? So what you end up doing is the if statement code full of bugs. So you start implementing all those different cases, and because those cases are not necessarily logical enough, you start putting if statements. So if this is the case, then this is going to happen. If this is the other case, then this is going to happen. So this creates very complex code that's trying to map all this text code that you got in the first place in the ticket. And at the end, you have a very complex code that's not testable. I mean, let's not talk about test day because we're not going to end before lunch. And all this not testable code is very complex, and you cannot change it. So the next time that the product manager comes back and needs a change, there is no way in hell you're going to go through this if statement of hell and find the correct place to change the code and implement the change. So you pause in there. Then the product manager says, okay, the text wall was very hard for you. You ended up with very complex code. I'm going to simplify things. So a new feature comes and says, build workable. I mean, you saw it was very easy before. In just a few slides, you learned the history of the company. You knew everything. So that's fine. You know what you want to do. You have a goal, but you have no way of understanding what's the priority, What's the first customer I should care about? What's the scenario that should happen most commonly? What does the user want to do? So you, you just have a sentence. And this is not helpful either, because this proposes even more questions. There are misunderstandings. There are things saying that, okay, you know, why can't I do X, Y, Z? And the developer says, because the ticket says, this is the goal. The goal is achieved. Yes, but in order to achieve that goal, 5 people I asked want to do the other thing. But that's not in the ticket. Yeah, but the previous time that the ticket was, you know, the textual, you were not happy with it, so I minimized stuff, and I have everything in my brain. You can ask me, and I'm going to tell you what's happening next. So the developer goes and creates code that's missing all these obvious, in quotes, corner cases, because, oh shit, I have no idea. I had a goal. I think, in my opinion, the goal is achieved through this code. And I do not really understand why all those missing corner cases are a problem, because they were not in the ticket in the first place. So where do you end up again? In the text wall of doom. So you have all this nice circle, and you know, you have a ping pong ball, and the ping pong ball goes from the one side of the table to the other, and every time, you know, you create a new problem, and then you end up back in the beginning. And of course, this is not very helpful, and I do not think that many of us would like to work in a situation where you go in circles and you do not end up in a situation where you like it. So the first thing that we need to do is to understand the constraints. And by constraints, I do not mean technical or product constraints. I mean constraints on the other side. There's no other side. We need to start bridging that gap, and we'll see how we're going to do this in a bit. So first of all, the thing is that we need to have clear priorities. I mean, I do not need to know all the different cases of the ticket, you know, all the different, all this text wall. I want to understand the priorities. The priority is I want to be able to purchase a product easily. That's a clear priority. I want to be able to use all the available payment methods. That's a good thing. I can understand how I'm going to make this work. But I do not necessarily need to know the seconds that the button will wait and change color afterwards to make the button spot. I mean, I need to have all those priorities and make sure that I know them well. The other thing, on the other side, on the developer side, we need to understand as developers that a shipped product is infinitely times better than a not shipped product that has better architecture, because sometimes developers go back to the dungeon and say, you know, I'm going to use all these nice patterns I learned in the previous conference. I remember nice new language I heard about. I'm going to use this one instead. And they start abstracting things, and they start complicating the code without the actually solving a problem. So the developers need to understand that, you know, you need to ship this product. You need to get feedback from the users. I mean, we're talking about product-led growth. If the product is not out there, you're not going to get any growth at all. That's, I mean, obvious, hopefully, for all of us in here. So it's really, really important to understand that you do not want to overcomplicate the code. Maybe the code will be thrown to the garbage afterwards because that new feature you tried it, it failed, throw it away. That's fine. I mean, you should not be sentimentally attached to that code. So that's very important as well. And also, we need to have a common goal. We need to build today, we need to ship today, and we'll polish tomorrow. This happens also in both sides. On the technical side, we are not going to create technical debt that's not going to end at all. But on the other side, we're not going to abstract everything from the beginning because we don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're going to ship the product and see how we can technically improve the product. And on the product side, again, we should not be perfect from the beginning, you know, all the copies, all the, you know, all the corner cases, all the error messages. I mean, yes, that's important, that's polishing, and we need to do this. But if we're going to end up throwing the feature away, there's no need to spend extra time before the product is actually shipped to polish all those cases. So build today, ship today, and then think about polishing tomorrow. Of course, we do not want to overstep, because sometimes developers want to share their opinions, or maybe even more than that, enforce their opinions to the product. That's fine to have an opinion on the product and try to improve that, but on the other hand, you need to draw a line and know where you should be focusing, because technical people are usually better at technical stuff and product people at product stuff. So that should be mutually agreed and approved. But on the other side, you need to understand the limitations of the other side. If the system, for example, has a lot of technical debt, you should not go and enforce even more features on that side of the product. Give it some time to breathe, give the developer some time to fix a bit, to polish it a bit, and then start continue adding more features on it. If the product, for example, needs a few features tomorrow, you should not wait 6 months for the perfect solution, but understand that the priority of the product right now is to build those new features. We're pivoting. Pivoting is a great thing, we hear it a lot, but if you pivot like in 3 months, maybe that pivot is late already, so you need to do it today. And that's very important. Then do not overstep. I mean, we have clear roles, we have clear priorities, and we should accept that the other side does the work best. I mean, all of us in the same room want to have a common goal, want the company and the product to succeed. So we need to have this in mind and always make sure that we share opinions, but we share opinions, we do not enforce them. That's a big difference in there. The other thing that a few times happens is creating silos. So after the company grows, you have structure, you have managers, you have all these things that are needed for a bigger team to work nicely. But then those things start creating silos. So it's the silo A, which are the developers, and silo B, which are the product teams, and then these two silos do not communicate. This is not a good option, because if you fail, both silos will fail. It doesn't matter if it is my problem, your problem, or their problem. It's all of our problems. So it must be made sure that we win together and we lose together. So we need to make sure that we communicate and we have clear bridges between the different teams. So after having all that, let's see how we're going to fix this. So first of all, we need to start understanding. Understanding how the system works, for example, on the product side is very important, because this will allow us to reduce technical debt, to avoid features that are not necessarily important but will need a lot of time to be implemented and all those things. So understanding how the system works, what are the places of the system where something can work easily and quickly, and what are the places that have a lot of technical debt, or what are the places that something is very contrary to how it works today, it's very important. On the developer side, you have to use your products. You have to understand, the end user. Once in a while, see a user interview, see a few videos from users trying to accomplish a goal in the product. Try to understand what's happening there. It's not only about code, it's a product. It's something that comes at the end, and this product should work nicely for the end user, for the customer. You need to be able to navigate different components of the system, even if you have multiple technical teams or multiple product teams. It's not necessarily, your silo. I have the feature X team, and that's only I care about. You need to understand the product holistically in both sides again. And of course, again, listen to your users. See interviews, see the analytics, see how they navigate through your product, and understand what matters to them the most. And of course, it's all about empathy. Empathy is the key feature that both teams will use in order to be able to understand each other and move forward as a whole, as a bigger team that has a common goal. It doesn't really matter if I wear the product hat, the engineering hat, the design hat, or whatever. We want this product and this company to succeed, then that's very important. We need to communicate a lot, because sometimes we end up, using the tool. Oh, do not send me a Slack message, or do not put a meeting with me, just comment in Jira or in whatever we use for task management. That's also not the option, because you need to be able to understand what's the problem, what's the priority. Why is this product manager agitated about the feature taking so long? Why do the developers take so much time to develop this new feature? Try to understand what's happening there, and this only happens through communication. And of course, always give context. When you want a new feature, or you want a feature to be done even faster, give some context. Okay, we have XYZ, we have this priority, thus we need to create a new feature, and this new feature this is the important part of it. Do not care about the rest. Focus on that one, and then this will help us move forward. So give context, and this will always help solve those problems and move faster. So potentially you've seen this in your everyday lives, but this is where the magic happens. As long as you start communicating, then nice things start to arise from where you do not expect them to be. So for example, you see product manager proposing solutions that actually simplify the technical implementation, which gives us speed, gives us nicer code, smaller code, easier code to maintain. Because they understand the system, they can describe what's important and thus simplify the technical solution really nicely. Or on the other side, we can see engineers proposing solutions that product managers do not think they can be implemented because they understand the system, they understand the needs of the users, and then they know that they can quickly create value, because value is what we care about, to the end customer without any issues. And now, for the end, of course, I would like to share a small story for the last couple of minutes. So I will try to abstract this as much as possible, but the idea is that in Platform we want to create a new product or a new feature, you can call it, where we could help our users on board more quickly, more easily into the product and be able to run their applications to the infrastructure. So for that, we try to be very close between engineering and product. And for us, it might seem easier that engineers are close to the product because we are a developer-first product. So that helps. Again, we're our own customers. But in that case, what we did was to start in the beginning and try to see what's the goal. The goal was to be able to ship into Platform messages fast without any issues. And for example, when we did the first briefing, we had the description of the project, blah, 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 all the initial things. We started discussing between engineering and product and see, what are the corners we could cut in order to be faster into delivering this feature. So first of all, the product was very clear about showcasing the expectations, what was important. We had like 10 different things that we could choose from, but they were very transparent about the things that really mattered both inside the company and for the end customer. So this was very easy for us, the engineers, to decide how we're going to prioritize the tasks, how we're going to architect this product, and move forward. On the other hand, for example, we needed to ask a few questions to the user about what's the stack they're using and what the database or whatever. And these were formed as questions on the product side because that was the way they thought we could get that information from the user. But from the engineering side, we understood that we could identify those things from the actual code. Because we have the code, we can also identify some of those features. So what we did there was say, okay, instead of asking those questions and create even more friction to the user, we could identify that for them, and then we can move forward without asking those questions, and the user will end up with the files that they need faster with fewer friction. So this was something that improved the product. Maybe reduce the code because we didn't need to care about user input, which is always a hard thing to handle. And then the end product was even nicer. So, I mean, this was not a big thing. This was not a product, but it was just a feature. But even in those cases, being communicative and talking between each other can help us reach the goal faster. So this was it for me today. I would like to thank you at this point. I know that you need to go to lunch, but feel free to grab me afterwards. And thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you, Antonis, mate. Well, good. We're over time, so I'll just ask one question, which is, what's the balance in your firm between innovation and trying to match the hyperscaling competition like AWS and the rest?
That's a really good question, and one of the questions that has been very prominent, especially in the last months, where online companies have a lot of struggle and all those costs get reduced. And the way that we're trying to do this is try to reach even more customers. So the company was previously sales-driven in the way that they approached sales, and now they're trying to be more product-driven because we want to approach even more smaller teams, more developers, and try to create a very good value proposition. Because at the end of the day, you need to make sure that the end customer will pay less overall for the same experience. So you want to create more features, so they need less people to manage the infrastructure. You want to make their workflows, their daily life easier. So what we're trying to do now is simplify onboarding a lot and try to make sure that customers landing into the application can get started with less support from us, which means less cost, which means either bigger profit or smaller prices for them. So that's
win-win.
that's kind of
Trying to win-win through PLG. All right, good. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you very much.